Welcome to Sustainable Stock, Shooting the Bull, brought to you by Boss Sires. We're not just pulling back the curtain, we're tearing it down. This is where the cold, hard truths come out about what's gone wrong in the cattle industry and what's still worth fighting for. You'll hear from real cattlemen and trusted voices who've built their operations the right way, the hard way, and are still asking the tough questions. Along the way, we'll give you the tools to do the same. What to look for, what to ask, and what really matters when it comes to sustainable, profitable cattle. No fluff, no filters, just real talk that's long overdue. Here's your host, Patrick Powers.
All right, folks, well, we're back at it. I've got John Atkinson sitting in with me as my co-host today, and we're joined by a guy who's been walking the walk a long time, Darris Meitler. I don't know if y'all had the opportunity to hear him on our main podcast, but he's the form follows function guy. And today we've got no script, no agenda, just some cattlemen shooting the bull. Let's get into it. John, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
All right, Darris Meitler, did you manage to get on the feed as well?
I am here from the great state of Kansas.
All right. Well, I know I got to show off the fact that I was drinking a beer just a minute ago, and I know that you said you were sitting on your porch enjoying one, and unfortunately it is noon for John right now, and he's driving a 3-year-old across the Outback.
Yeah, so I'm very enviously listening to you two pop beers.
So here is my cheers to you, Darris, as we get into this, and a neener to John. So how do we want to fire this thing off, guys? I know that we had a messenger going between the three of us about just rants and raves and stuff we might want to cover when we finally have the opportunity to get together. As I picked on you in the intro, Form Follows Function was our title for our main podcast episode with you, Darris. Do you think you might want to take advantage of the free time we have here to maybe dive into the mindset behind that a little bit? I know I was walked away from that podcast wanting to give you the opportunity to have a little more on that.
Yeah, well, good to be on the phone with you guys here today. We're enjoying a nice evening with no wind, and it's all good here. I definitely can't take credit for the quote form follows function, but I think that was something we were wanting to talk a little bit about today. And
yeah, I kind of dove straight in on you, didn't I?
Yep. Nope, that's all good. Talking about our cow herds and what we're trying to accomplish, I guess. I know I've had some talks with John, and we just kind of sit back and observe our cows and the older generation that has been proven. I guess I've compared it to the old gentleman that's been through life, the 80-year-old that's did everything in life and maybe served in the military, and life wants to passing by. And if we take a moment to sit down with them and ask a few questions, it's truly amazing how much we can learn. And I think our old granny cows walking around sometimes, they got stories to tell, and maybe if we soak them up a minute and look them over and understand why they worked and why they lasted and did what we wanted to, there's just so much to learn. Anyhow, that's a little bit of my take on the form follows function thing, and every ranch is different, but that's a little take on it for me, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of threw that straight at you. I mean, that's the cool part about talking with two guys like y'all. Y'all are on opposite ends of the world, even for me, I feel like. And your statement really sounds true there. I mean, John can look out at his backyard and take a look at everybody he's got out there, all his cattle, and learn different lessons along the same lines as you. And what's funny is the lessons learned from each cattleman and their herds can still be applicable to each other's. I mean, I'm looking out my kitchen
100%.
window right now watching babies chasing mama and play and buck as I'm doing this podcast. John, I know half the time I talk to you, you're sitting at your house watching a field of shit go on.
Well, usually it's my little humans that are the ones being a pain in the butt, as they are right now in the back of the car. But yeah, I mean, as Darris was saying, I think he and I were probably a bit different to a lot. We were lucky to learn from the generations before us that had spent a bit of time talking about functionality through, the likes of the lessons of Professor Jan Bonsma, and those basic sort of abilities, as Darris said, to observe your cow herd and find those 10, 12, 14-year-old cows that are doing it every year, year in, year out, raising the good calf, going back in calf, and doing it easily. And I mean, they're the ones that we need to be learning from, and working out what's the similarities between those ones, or what are the differences between those ones and the ones that can't do it, and then learn to pick at a younger age what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the listener, you two guys came together and formed a mutual relationship on y'all's activity through the Bonsma All Breeds page, right, on Facebook?
Yep.
Correct.
And a little further on that conversation, if it makes y'all uncomfortable, please tell me, but y'all have got to be Bonsma'd out by this point. Bonsma, and y'all are constantly seeing quotes online and having to say, hey, that's Bonsma principles, and hey, y'all are misconstruing this and that. So if y'all want to take a break from being that spokesman tonight and just be yourself, y'all can, but if y'all feel the need to speak on that louder, that's also welcome. But y'all have both been in this long enough, and just both of y'all have spoke on the observations y'all have made as individuals. You can be influenced and them still be guiding principles, but have your own.
Right. Well, and hearing John talk and watching the old timers and I guess our cows that have lasted, that we always talk about, we want to learn from and replicate, and they kind of got to be fairly sassy old girls to get it done. And I know John's been at it for a while, and I have too, and generations before us. And if you weren't a little bit crazy, I don't know if you'd still be doing this stuff. So it takes a special individual. It takes special cows to stand the test of time and to do it. And I guess that's why we strike up a chord, because we definitely have those similarities, and it's just fun to hash it out and talk about it. And these cows that, like I said, that get it done on this country are just like the settlers that came out here. They're half nuts, but they're tough enough to do it and to last. And it's kind of like these old ranchers. They, if you weren't out here doing it and had enough fight in you to keep doing it, you just won't last. And I guess when John was saying that stuff, it whatever, it got me thinking nostalgia like I usually do. But that was my train of thought after he said that.
Yeah, absolutely. John, anything to add on that?
I'm just trying not to watch the video right now. I don't know if you can see these guys, Darris.
No, Darris is on a phone call only.
But we've got some Harry Potter shitting going on here. And
Darris, I'm being quite unprofessional right now. I've added a wizard filter over my image.
I got a mental picture. That was good enough.
No, I mean, well, exactly what Darris said. I couldn't agree more. I am learning, even through listening to the mainstream podcasts that you guys there are doing with the boss size stuff. I mean, it's just beautiful to listen to those old timers talk about what has worked, and it is amazing that even though we had the theories of Bonsma behind us in our upbringing, all these old timers that have been there and doing it, it's the same stuff they're doing. They just, they didn't have the particular theories behind it. They just did what worked, and Mother Nature dictates at the end of the day what is and isn't going to work. I mean, you can pour as much feed down their neck as you want, and you can run a belted Galloway or something like that in the hardest environment in the world if you're prepared to put the money into it. But if you want to make a profitable business, you've got to follow what Mother Nature's going to allow you to do. And that essentially should be, if you're keeping the finger on your pulse in your herd and making those cows calve every year and do it again and again and again, then your cattle will end up looking like any other functional herd, no matter what color their hide is.
Well, that sounds a lot like what Darris said in the group chat we had preparing for this episode. Just potential topics is that ranches used to be test stations, or they once served that purpose. Darris, would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, I think for survival, people, it had to be profitable, it had to work. It was always on a razor's edge. And some of us still are, uh, still living it that way, and we as ranchers got to be adaptable. And we talk about that, and the bondsman cattle that they can be adaptable and kind of handle what comes at them, whether it's floods or droughts or change the circumstance, whatever it is. And every ranch is so much different. We run on a lot of lease ground. We own some ground, but in our country, we lease grass for 6-month periods from May 1 to November 1, and then we search to find. We don't farm much, but if we can find crop residue, milo stubble, corn stubble to graze for a little intermediate time, and then bring them back to the home place on our own dirt to take care of them during the winter months, and then do it all over again in the spring. And I'm not saying that is the prototype. That's just our situation, and everybody's situation is different, from a continuous ranch that cattle are never trailered to John's situation, and where he's at's totally different, I'm sure. So it's just we always got to just handle what's coming at us, and we kind of expect our cows to try to help us figure that out. From year to year, we honestly don't know what's going to come at us, and it's always a changing game. But if you're not willing to change, sometimes that can catch up to you too. So,
No, I like that line of thinking, Darris. I'm particularly fond of the fact that you didn't mention a breed of cattle there. You said these bondsman type.
Right.
And I like that you've highlighted that it can cross all breeds. And I feel like the Facebook page y'all are both admins on does a really good job of that, spreading this idea that we need to quit being married to breeds and the concept. It's what's locally adapted and what functions and what's hormonally functional and those type principles.
Yeah, well, I mean, to add to that, if you're a commercial cow and calf operator and you're not worried about breeding seed stock, unless there is an enormous market for a purebred animal to be sold into, your offspring, I can't understand why anyone would be married to one breed. The benefits of being able to crossbreed and essentially create your own composite that is the best for your market and your environment, I mean, that's where you should end up.
Right. And to piggyback on that, John, so many times people think of heterosis of just weaning weight pounds, period. Right. Well, no one talks about all the other things they get from longevity being longer due to heterosis, from milking ability better, from fertility better. I mean, everything gets a little X, right? And I think that's sometimes lost to think about what a cross can do for you.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, our last episode, it was me, Grant, and John, and we ended up turning that more into a rant. And we had to really hunt for a message of positivity to end on. So I would like to try and invite the rants to come early this episode, if y'all are willing. So we already touched on a couple of John's. Darris, do you have any rants, pet peeves that you would like to bring to the table?
Um, well, I guess we're just kind of wrapping up here in the U.S. kind of sales season euphoria, whatever, and I get all the fancy catalogs in the mail of this, that, and everything, and I guess looking through some of those, man, it doesn't take long to pick it up and just at a glance know that I'm not interested in reading anything about that one. And nothing against the people. I mean, a lot of great people can have really shitty cattle, but just, I mean, such and such mother sold for 100,000 and such, and it's nothing about the ones I enjoy picking up, or maternal grandmother lasted till she was 12, and just talk about someone that was really connected with the cattle on a daily basis, and you can just in a few sentence paragraph on their description of their cattle, you pick up on it, right? They know their cows, they live with them, and they're involved with them, and man, some of them, it's such a, I don't know how to say it other than a computer generated world. I don't know how to describe that exactly, but it's just so evident in the sales catalogs that are so prevalent around the U.S. I know that.
Yeah, it's like newspeak. It's just the best way to navigate buzzwords into your conversation and to highlight whatever is marketable.
Right. And I don't know, John, is it that way over there, or is it different, or what?
Yeah, it's exactly the same here. And I mean, yeah, it's the same thing. I guess exactly what you said. It resonates with me because it's, this bull or these line of bulls, there'll be 10 or 12 bulls out of one cow because she was a ribbon winning cow. And then you have a look at that cow and yeah, she's produced nothing naturally in her life. She's a big barren cow with a brisket that's a foot long and an udder that's dry, that you can tell when that udder's full, it is not an attractive udder. And yet she'll have 8 sons in the sale that'll average 40 or 50,000. And it didn't annoy me as much as it sort of makes me sad that cow is having that bigger influence on the industry and on people's herds when they just don't deserve to be that influential, and it's taking the industry backwards at a rate of knots.
Right. And I guess that's why we're sitting here today, banging our heads together, trying to figure out how we make the unknown cows known, or whether we own them or not, or whatever breed they are, that there are remnants of good out there. And I guess to transition from our rants to the positive, there are good ones out there, and there are people doing it right. You just might have to flip over a few more branches and a few more leaves and a few more rocks and see underneath to find them, So.
Absolutely. No, I mean, that is why we're here. That is the purpose of this podcast. It's not as much to rant as it is to fly flags and to educate the potential buyer and the consumer as well. We tend to lose the concept, in my opinion, that what would be the biggest benefit of our industry is if the consumer managed to find their way to hear these kind of conversations as well, and heard what concern individuals like you and John had for the industry's future, where the show world, and I use that as a very broad term, conventional cattle right now, their concerns are in a league different than y'all's. And that's why I'm very proud to be here speaking with y'all today. So let's conduct this in a way where we would hope that if the consumer found their way to this and they heard the concerns that y'all are speaking on, it would educate them as well. So to move in that direction, last episode, we just simply put, what would be some flags? So Darris, what would be some flags for you if I were to walk onto if I was invited to an operation next week, a larger operation, and I was shopping these cows potentially? If I saw this, what would put you going right back to the truck and saying thanks for your time and leaving?
Oh, I think I think we're all a little guilty of it, but um, for step one, for what people need to do is to go visit ranches. And,
That's an excellent point.
I don't know, as a kid, I remember cattlemen coming and going through herds and really spending the time. And I'm not saying people don't, but I think it's less. The world is so busy. But to go find that herd bull's mother, hey, maybe your grandmother and her great grandmother, to ask questions. Who were they? What did they do? Production records as far as were they in calf every year? Um, just simple things like that, and maybe uh, as much of that as the immediate now data on that individual is, what were those animals back behind, and what did they do, and to study it just a little bit more. But step one is to be on that and go to be interested in the cow herd that you're wanting to buy from. I think that's huge. To make a trip and to put that much effort into it is, I think, all those red flags per se to be looking for will start to show themselves. And maybe as we go along, we can talk about some of the individual things as far as physically we might look for in a mother cow of that herd bull. But for step one is, I think, to step foot on that ranch and get a feel for it. That very simple, but yet I don't know how many people do it anymore, right?
Well, I know from experience over here that it's very, very few people do that anymore. And I mean, when I was sort of in my late teens and early 20s, a mate and I did that quite a bit because you used to do a bull sale running our breed, and you'd spend 2 weeks and you'd go to 8 sales, and in between you'd go and visit breeders. And unfortunately, it more often than not turned you off their cattle, because what you were seeing in the shop window looked nothing like what the operation actually was. And not saying that they were wrong or doing it wrong, but certainly for what we were looking for, it was not where we needed to be sourcing our genetics from. And I think, as Darris said, it's time, it's all those things now that people just say, I can't do it. Or when it's a big name stud, people aren't prepared to question them, so they don't want to drive around because they feel like they're putting them out or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're the buyer in any other industry, if you're the one spending the money, the customer's always right. You've got a right to go for a look around, and you need to, because you'll more than likely end up saving yourself a lot of money by going and checking those cow herds out.
Right. And I'd make the point that some of that late work should be done pre-sale, right? Not showing up the day of and expecting that thing to go happen. Show up the summer before, do some due diligence on out ahead of time, reach out to them and, hey, let's go through some cows, and whenever they got time ahead of time. I think those are a point to be made too.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we can back up both of y'all's statements there, and I love that y'all have both acknowledged this experience of just visiting the herd. You're buying of that herd. You're pulling from that herd. So why wouldn't you want to witness the herd? The relationship the cattle have with the land, their grazing systems, the ownership, the care level they're offered. And by observing all that, you can fully understand what you have to offer that cow as well. And if you can meet the needs so it can perform at the basis you're you're buying it based off of.
And I think, bulls have got such a rapid impact on herds now that when you're going and buying a bull, in a 3-month join or whatever your operation is, that bull needs to cover anywhere from 40 to 60 cows. And because of the time frame related to breeding cattle, you are better off to know what you're buying beforehand, because if you just blindly, naively trust a breeder, buy that bull, you've got 3 crops of calves on the ground or on the way by the time you know what his progeny are really going to do by the time his daughters start calving, by the time his sons are ready to be sold, anything like that. So, I mean, we've done it plenty of times, gone and bought bulls, and you've got the 2-year-olds, the 1-year-olds, the calves on mum, and the bull's probably back out being rejoined before you go, holy Christ, this is not going to end well, because the daughter's udders, that's the first sign we usually see that, and that's that first oh no moment you have, and then you go as quick as you can and get that bull out of the cows to try and prevent any more influence on your herd. So if you can have done the research beforehand, gone and had a look, seen his mother's udder, because I mean that's the big hidden one that we've found bites really bad. Because I mean when his first crops are calved on the ground, they can look beautiful, but when their bag starts to fill up properly on that first calf, and you can tell its structure's wrong, teat size, whatever it is, that's when you realize.
Yeah, that makes that early trip, like you say, seem pretty painless. And man, you're not invested all that 3 years of calf crop, like you said, on into something that you could have pumped the brakes on a long time ago and saved you a lot of heartache.
Yeah.
Well, when you're referring to buying something as influential on your herd as your bull, you would think that time investment would seem like nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, to bring in one female, she can't have that detrimental of an impact on your entirety of your herd in a single season.
No.
But to buy a bull sight unseen, met it for the first day, observed it for 3 hours at the sale, and in a stressed environment, a busy, stressed environment, and I'm going to buy it based off that, unknowing of its lineage, and then come home and let it just take my herd wherever it goes.
And I mean, to a point, that's what a lot of these operations, these big sellers are relying on. They're relying on the fact that they can present them for 4 hours before the sale, looking a certain way that's going to get 99% of people in without doing any research. They're just going to buy on exactly what they see in front of them, and they're going to leave. And, those bulls might go out in the big operations where you can never pinpoint the problems come through them. They might be one bull in a paddock of 15 or 20 bulls. So those breeders never really have anyone come back and say, this is your fault. But when they're single side or DNA'd or anything like that, you can go, hold on, this fault's coming from this line.
Yeah. Darris, do you have screen doors?
No, just a creaky door. Sorry. Sorry. I was trying to be quiet, but it obviously was not.
I had to ask. I had to ask.
Well, I got kids that I got a daughter in high school now, so I'm good with these doors being loud, right? Dad might wake up if someone's trying to sneak out of the house. We're
Not
good.
me. I can sleep through. I have slept through a hurricane.
Right.
That is what mama's for.
Yep.
Well, I hope I didn't derail us on our conversation there. John, I do feel like you really hearkened in that point very well. You drove that last nail in that, and I never considered the implications that meeting the herd could have. I've done it myself, but I guess I didn't value it at the level I should have. I've touched on that in previous conversations that when I go, it's more to see the care level the cattle are given, because I know the care level I can offer. And I don't want to buy cattle that have expectations of need out of me that I can't meet. I've never considered the ability to view multi-generational or ask those questions in that depth. I haven't utilized that tool at the level I could have. And I appreciate y'all reflecting on that.
Right. Here, I got a question for John.
Hit it.
I'll shift gears a little bit. So, John, if you're walking in and we got this, in our last conversations here, we kind of got this, okay, so you stepped on this guy's herd and you're going to look at his cows. What that I think sometimes if people don't have a whole bunch of experience, and I know when I was a younger man, I was envious of the old timers that could look at animals and maybe they instantly knew yay or nay, and I guess as a young guy, I thought I knew, but until you've seen it go through the process enough times, as far as from youth to adult animals, you how do I want to say, you don't know until you experience that enough times to, I finally, I probably know why my dad probably wasn't leading the breeding decisions of the main herd, of the registered herd. We run commercials too, of course, but he wasn't leaving them up to me, and there was a reason. and finally, at 46 years old, I think I get it. But talk a little bit about your eye and what you look for in, say, a herd bull mother. What are some things that you would just, at a glance, what you like in a cow? Talk me through that a second.
Okay, well, I mean, to me, so much of it is obviously looking at things like skin thickness, brisket, and fat deposits. I mean, that's going to be a very good sign as to her productive life without looking at anything on paper or her breeding record. I mean, when those cows start to lay down fat in their brisket, you know that she's missed calves or she hasn't given much to a calf. I would stay well clear of extreme bone, just purely for an animal's doing ability. Anything to any extreme would be the fear in me. The muscle on the neck, stay away from that. The dark, coarse hair over the shoulder. I mean, you want her skin to be light and fine. You want those wrinkles in her neck to be little and thin. I mean, now with the online Facebook world, all the videos you see and you see the thickness of the dewlap on some of these cattle and the skin, and it's like green hide. It doesn't want to bend. It's so heavy and coarse. And I mean, that to me is just such a red flag. I mean, it probably depends a little bit if she's lactating or not. I'd prefer to see a cow when she's lactating, even if it's towards the end of a life cycle of a breeding year. You're still going to know what that udder structure is, if it's level, if the quarters are right. And then, there's little things like the tail head. I hate a big wide tail head where that tail head meets the spine. To me, it needs to be fine and whippy and a big brush on the end. And at the end of the day, she's got to be calm. She's got to have a calm eye, be relaxed with it all. And I mean, there's little things. So the sport over here called camp drafting, as a bit of a tangent here, it's amazing hormonal imbalance and the correlation that has to temperament. And when you're camp drafting, you have a mob of cattle in a yard that are anywhere from sort of 7 to 9, 6 to 8, depending on where it is. And you stay away from the late cut staggy bulls, from the over masculine heifers, because they are going to be very different minded. They're going to run differently. They're going to be a bit wild outside. They're going to be wild inside. And a lot of that translates into any cow herd. Those super feminine, super moderate cows, they are calm, and temperament correlates to so much about doing ability when it comes to feedlots. They go in, they relax, they start eating the next day, and yet very little emphasis is put on a lot of this stuff, even though it all means dollars out the other end. And I guess, yeah, if you were to narrow it down to a handful of things, obviously structure's probably my first thing when it comes to walking. That cow has to be smooth and fluid with her motions when she walks around, and a lot of that then correlates to structure, back leg structure, if she's straight in the hocks or if she's too sickle in the hocks. That'll all be to do with her pelvis and her shoulders through the front, those sorts of things being misaligned and out of whack. But yeah, I mean, it's probably an easy one, and you'd be the same when you walk into a mob of 50 or 100 cows. There'll be 2 or 3 super moderate cows. The shoulder blades will be up above their spine. You know, they'll have a little fine neck. There'll be fine skin. If she's 8-year-old, that skin behind the back of her jaw will be starting to tighten up, because every time she calves, she'll get a little bit tighter there in the neck. And yeah, I mean, I go on about it, but I just cannot stand big briskets. I mean, the moment a cow has a big brisket, she's just got to be sent to the meatworks as far as I'm concerned, because she's not paying away.
I saw a video today online of a bunch of cows that your briskets comments. Man, I got to find it tonight and send it to you so you can look at it, because it'll make you puke too.
Yeah, I saw it was a Latin American Indicus breeder, and he was, I don't understand Spanish or Portuguese or whatever it was, and he was I could understand that he was very proud of his herd, and they were just big mob of high Indicus cows. They were all open or dry. To me, a handful of them looked like they had a belly full of calf. Not many of them did, and they were all 12, 1,300, 1,400 pound cows with these big, thick, dual lap, heavy briskets. And I was just thinking, that's, you know, I'm envious. Obviously, financially, they aren't in any position that they need their cow herd to be productive, because they were there doing that and not paying their way at all. And he was proud as punch.
Right. And like I say, everybody's situation is different, but when you're living on the cutting edge or the knife's edge of, it's got to work, right? I mean, but I think you described.
And to be honest, I think if I won Lotto tomorrow and had $100 million sitting in the bank account, I still would make my cows calve every year, because that to me is the prettiest thing in the world.
Thanks for tuning in to Shooting the Bull. What you just heard was only a glimpse of the full conversation, and there's a lot more where that came from. For the full episodes, deeper conversations, and real cattleman talk with no filter, join us over on Patreon. Question the noise, trust the land, and don't breed nonsense.